Hi, Sandra Espinoza here today to talk to you about sewing. I'm a designing sewist. This episode is actually dedicated to one of the people in my sewing community, people that have contributed some information to me lately about some of their sewing struggles, and that's what I'm talking about today. So this particular episode, this first episode, is dedicated to Betty Gold. I thank you so much, Betty, for coming into my community and for giving me your feedback. I'm really appreciative and I am so thankful to be able to help you with this particular concern. So today I'm talking to you about my 5 top tips for making your own clothes. So welcome if you're joining me on a replay. Thank you for watching. You can always leave me any kind of feedback like thumbs up or emojis letting me know how you like it. So thanks again for being here. And if you want to leave a comment, you can always leave comments here. Thank you for joining me. And I would love to know where you're from if you're joining. Just let me know where you're from. I'm coming to you from the DFW area here in Texas. And so let's just get to tip number 1. So my first tip of my 5 top tips for making your own clothes. Number 1 is knowing what your body silhouette is. So, what is your body shape? When you're coming through the pattern section of your store, or if you're just searching online for patterns, you might not know what kind of pattern would be suitable for you or what kind of thing would be flattering for you. So I think that before you go through the trouble of actually buying your pattern, you need to really know what silhouette, what body shape you are. So I actually have a few books that I go to when I'm sort of struggling with finding a new silhouette to be putting on and or to be sewing. So I go to my first book that I really like, that I think is really helpful, is this book. It's What Not to Wear. Let's see if you can see that. So the What Not to Wear book by Trini Woodall and Susanna Constantine. I'll show that to you so that you can, there you go. So this is the book that I really like because it goes through some different things about, what's flattering if you have a small waistline but a large lower half, like if you have large body, if you have wide hips, if you have no bust line, if you're sort of flat. I don't have that. I have a larger lower half, so I have to be careful what kind of silhouettes I pick. And I think that it's a good idea to really just accept your body shape and pick those styles that are most flattering to you. So top tip number 1, know your body silhouette. Another book that I really like is How to Have Style by Isaac Mizrahi. And this is one of my books that I really like because it will help you just be more comfortable with trying things out, different styles of clothes that might be really helpful to flattering, certain parts of your figure. And that's really the most important thing, is to really feel comfortable in the clothes that already flatter you, so that when you go buy a pattern, that you can really find the shape or the style of pattern that's more flattering to you. Okay, so covering that. And one more quick book. So this is my 3rd book for tip number 1 that can help you if you really need some more ideas about your body shape and your silhouette, are to maybe look at this book. This is, let's see if there's no glare here. Okay, so it's Tim Gunn, his Guide to Quality, Taste, and Style. I like this book because it's generally about style, about how to have style. He goes through, some fitting tips to give you a little bit more, to help you get more in touch with your body shape so that you're comfortable wearing certain things. So those are the 3 books that I highly recommend for you to try when you're not sure what kind of shapes are flattering to you for your body shape. Okay, so that's tip number 1. Tip 2 is that you should use the simplest sewing pattern that you can find. And you always want to pick a pattern that is the right size for your largest measurement. So if you don't know your body measurements before you go pattern shopping, you really need to take notes of that, of what your body measurements are. So you'll measure your bust line, your waistline, and your hip line. If you don't know how to do that, you can buy these tape measures, and they're really inexpensive at your local store. You can actually even buy a tape measure and probably open the package. Just tell the people at the pattern store or the fabric store that you're going to buy the actual tape measure, and just measure yourself. Maybe they'll help you measure. Maybe your friend can help you measure at home. But measure your waistline, measure your hip line, measure your bust, and you'll want to pick your pattern in such a way that you're buying the size of pattern that is your largest measurement. So for instance, if your bust measures a 36, but your waist measures a 30, and your hip measures a 38, this is inches. On this pattern, for instance, I don't know if you can see. Okay, maybe not. Maybe it's too crazy, but what you should know there is that the largest measurement is the 30-inch waist. And the 30-inch waist actually shows up here on the pattern as a size 16, where the bust and hip measurement was a size 14. You definitely want to buy the size 16 pattern because you won't have to, it's always easier to shrink a pattern than it is to let a pattern out. And so I always feel like it's safer to have a pattern that's going to give you the most allowance of fabric to fit your body shape. So definitely make sure that you are measuring yourself. Again, use a tape measure. You might need a friend, but definitely make notes before you go pattern shopping. And the thing that you also might want to be thinking of is that on some patterns, like Vogue patterns, this is a Vogue pattern, and on the back, there are sometimes notes like these here. So this one has a triangle and then like an inverted triangle, and then you have this one that's supposed to be like the shape of an hourglass. The one that's missing is a rectangle. Maybe it's a square. And yeah, it's a rectangle. So on this other pattern I have, you can see that it's a rectangle. So what does all that mean? So if you're an apple shape, you have a rounded shape towards your torso or your midsection. Your legs and your arms might be thinner. And then if you're a pear shape, or if you're the inverted triangle, which is the regular triangle, I mean, if you're a regular triangle with the widest part at the bottom is a pear shape. So a pear shape just means you have a smaller upper body and a larger lower body. So I'm a pear shape. I have I've always been a pear shape, but I've progressively become more pear shaped over the years, after having a few kids and just life. So that's that. Now your other bit here is, okay, so if you're an hourglass, okay, that was the two inverted triangles that they show here. That's the hourglass shape. And so you'll know that your pattern is going to flatter you if you see those particular symbols on the patterns that you buy. Not all patterns are going to have those symbols, but you can look to them to find out, what a more appropriate style might be for you. Okay, so that's that. And if you're going to buy vintage pattern, so I do have a vintage pattern here. This is also a Vogue pattern, and this one doesn't have any designations like that on it at all. This is an older pattern, probably from the 60s, and there's nothing here that gives me any kind of idea. That's why it's important for you to know what your sizing is, so that you can buy the right size and the right proportion for your silhouette, which we covered in tip 1. Okay, so that's tip 2. Tip 2 is to use a simple pattern. You want to pick the one that has the simplest lines, the least number of pieces, and that doesn't have a lot of complicated details. So you don't want to have, if this is your first go at sewing after a couple years of you being away from sewing, you'll want to pick the pattern that doesn't have a zipper. Maybe it has a zipper. Maybe it's a simple zipper. but maybe not an invisible zipper. You might want to pick something that has minimal buttons to no buttons. Maybe you want to pick something that has elastic. Elastic is usually easier to put in than something like a zipper. So, but elastic's not necessarily flattering to some body shapes. So you have to be careful what kind of details you pick. Pick a simple pattern, the simplest one for your body shape, your silhouette. Okay, so tip 3, choose the appropriate fabrics. So a drapey fabric is, it's like a knit, but I would say more like a jersey. If you can get a jersey fabric, and it's sort of a slinky fabric, it has some stretch to it in two directions, and it will skim your body. It'll skim the widest parts of your body, and it tends to drape away from your widest parts. Now, if you're doing something like pants and you have some parts that you want to sort of hold in a little bit more for some support, like I do with my hips, I would choose a heavier weight fabric to sort of to hold in some of the 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 areas like my hips and thighs. I would use a heavier fabric with a little bit of stretch. So something that has a little bit of spandex in there would be really helpful to flatter your lower half of your body, or even your upper half, your upper torso. If you tend to need more smoothing of the areas on the upper body, then you would choose a fabric that would help to flatter that portion of your body. If you have, some issues with your lower half and you want to sort of mask those, or kind of give them more support, then you would definitely want to use a heavier weight fabric, or some with a little bit of stretch like a spandex, to skim over that lower half of your body. So definitely beware of those two options. You do want to hold in areas that need a little bit more support, kind of like you would with like pantyhose, or like support undergarments, and then you would want to make sure that if you want things to skim, you would want to use something that's a drapey kind of fabric. So drapey fabric would be really great for, like for me, for instance, since I'm a pair, I would choose something to flatter my upper body, which I don't necessarily mind showing off. And then I would choose, to have it drape away and skim over my hips and thighs. So I would choose a drapier fabric, and I would definitely include a slip underneath a dress if I made a dress out of a slinky fabric, to cover those areas. So that's tip 3. Tip 3 is to choose the appropriate fabric for the areas that you're trying to flatter, or you're trying to conceal or camouflage. Okay, so tip 4 is that if you can afford a dressmaker's form like I have here, this one is a cross dresser. This is a male form, but it's just holding a couple of pieces that I'm working on right now. And so I have a male form that I use when I make custom clothing for men, and then I have a regular dress form over here, which is it's a vintage form, and I really like it because I I can use it for being another me. So if you can afford a dressmaker's form, definitely invest in one. You can find them on eBay. You can find them in vintage shops. You don't need a new one. You just need to make sure that it can expand to your measurements. So again, that's why your measurements are so important. And before you buy your form, just make sure that you're buying the size form, especially if it's a new one. You'll be able to buy it in sizes that are appropriate for your particular body size and shape. So, okay, so that's tip 4. Tip 4 is to invest in a dressmaker's form. And the last tip, tip 5, is to be patient. So you just need to, accept the fact that there are going to be some problems. I still have problems with sewing. I've been sewing for over 30 years, and I think we're coming on 33 years that I've been sewing, and I still have to take out stitches. So I still have to rip things out. Sometimes the tension isn't right. Maybe I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, and I changed out a thread, or I was using a different fabric, and that's a completely other discussion that we can definitely have sometime soon. So anyhow, so that's tip 5, is to have patience and just take time. Don't try to come to your first, sewing project for making your own clothes thinking that you'll be able to do it in an hour. Your pattern might say it's an hour project, but if this is your first project, it's probably going to be a day project. So definitely allot the right amount of time that you need for making your own clothes. Start simple. Start with a one-piece thing like maybe a shirt or a simple skirt. If you have a little bit more knowledge, maybe you can go ahead and try a larger, or like a bigger piece like a dress or a long skirt or maybe even pants, maybe a coat. But definitely stay simple and just make sure that you have, that you're not putting too much on yourself. So honor your struggle and just keep with it. I am happy to be here to help you with any sewing issues. If you're watching this on a replay, you can always share this with anybody that you know that may be starting to sew, that was talking about recently about making their own clothes and not knowing where to start. These 5 tips are the tips that I die by, or I live by, and I would hope for you to pass these on as nuggets of wisdom from you and me to somebody that you know and care about that can benefit from this information. So thanks for watching. I just want to let you know that if you like this, you can always, and you're watching a replay, you can always like it or add an emoji or anything. You can always share it. And I think you can still leave comments after the fact. So please do that. I look forward to hearing from you. If you're not part of my sewing community and you're here watching it afterward and you do have questions, please leave comments so that I can know what other questions you might have that came up because you didn't catch this live, that you didn't have a chance to ask me any questions here live. You can always add those questions in to the comment area so I can know where you might need a little bit more information. I'm going to cover the 5 tips again. Tip 1, know your body silhouette. Know what body shape you are. Are you an apple, a pear, a rectangle, or an hourglass? Tip 2, use a measuring tape. Know all of your body measurements so that before you go shopping for a pattern, you know exactly what you should buy. Tip 3, choose the right kind of fabric to flatter or camouflage the areas that are troublesome or, or that you want to show off. Definitely know what it is that you want to accentuate or camouflage. Tip 4, if you can afford a dressmaker's form like these things here behind me, you definitely should allot some funds and invest in a dressmaker's form. It can shorten and make the whole process of making clothes for yourself a lot easier. You can even get forms that are specifically for making things like pants, and those are awesome also. So, whatever it is that you're interested in, buy the thing that you think you'll get the most use from in the immediate future. And then the last tip is, again, tip 5 is to be patient. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to helping you here with any sewing issues you have that I can cover live. And so thank you for joining. I will be talking next time. I will be covering a little bit about Project Runway. Project Runway starting on, or actually started last night, Project Runway Season 15, Episode 1. I'm watching it tonight with my kids. They love it, and especially my little fashionista daughter. She loves to watch that with me, and we get a lot of chuckles out of it. So I am going to be talking about that and giving my feedback on what happened in that episode on Monday or Tuesday, so that's coming up. And I'll also go into deeper information about some of Betty's issues here that she had shared with me. Again, if you're not part of my community, make sure that you like this page or like this video so that I can get in touch with you, or you can maybe see this video or any other future videos again. Thank you so much for watching. Sandra Espinoza here, coming to you live from the DFW area, talking about sewing. Thanks so much.